Correct, but John Perkins, who's quite a famous author and dreamer, wasn't able to attend, but he allowed us to do a video interview with him, which we're going to play right now. Just one moment.
Every major indigenous culture that I know of, and I spend a lot of time with many of them. I take people on trips every December to the Kogi of Colombia, in January to the Maya of Guatemala, in August into the jungles of the Shuar and Achua of the Amazon. And if people are interested in doing that, go to johnperkins.org. And I've spent a lot of time with indigenous cultures in many other parts of the world. They all have prophecies that we've arrived at a time for the potential for human transformation, really to rise to higher consciousness. The eagle and the condor prophecy from the Amazon and the Andes, it's kind of spread around a lot of the world today. It's known by a lot of people is part of that, where it says that that way back in the mists of history, back thousands of years ago, human societies decided to take two different courses, two different flights. One was the flight of the condor, which they said was the flight of the heart, the flight of passion, of emotion, of art. You might even say the feminine path. And the other path, the other flight, was the flight of the mind, the flight of the ego, the flight of industry, of science. You might even say the male flight. The prophecy said that for many years these two would be totally separate. And then in the fifth Pachacuti, and a Pachacuti is a 500-year interval, the fourth Pachacuti, which was approximately 1500 by our calendar, they would come together, the eagle and the condor, and clash. And the eagle would be so powerful as to practically drive the condor into extinction, but not quite. And of course, we know that's what happened, 1492, Columbus. And after that, the industrialized societies of the world practically drove the indigenous people around the world into extinction, but not quite. The prophecy goes on to say that in the fifth Pachacuti, 500 years later, roughly the year 2000, the eagle and the condor would have the opportunity to soar together in one sky, to dance, to mate, and to create an offspring which would be higher consciousness. And we're seeing that happening. So beginning in around the 1990s is when I started publishing books on shamanism, shape-shifting, the world is as you dream it, psychonavigation. And a lot of other people began writing about shamanism too. And the shamans came out of hiding all over Latin America and other parts of the world, but especially in Latin America. And so the coming together began to happen, and it's continued. And today we're certainly seeing it on a big level. And the interesting thing is the prophecies don't say that we will have a higher consciousness. They say we have the opportunity. And I think we're taking advantage of that opportunity. There is a higher consciousness rising across the planet. I travel a lot. I was recently speaking in Russia and China and Kazakhstan and all over Latin America, and headed for Czech Republic soon, and many other places. And everywhere I go, I see that people are waking up to the fact that we live on a fragile space station that we're in the process of destroying. It has no shuttles. We can't get off. We need to take care of it. People are really getting that. And it's this higher consciousness also reaches into the plant world. So ayahuasca is part of that. The plants are reaching out to us and speaking to us. But it's not just ayahuasca and San Pedro and mushrooms and the ones that we think of as being the mind-stimulating plants. They're all reaching out to us. People are taking a great interest in saving forests and having plants in their houses. I see this everywhere I go. There's a lot of plant consciousness conferences going on around the world. And certainly there's always speakers who talk about the plants we think of as plants of the soul, the plants that alter our minds, the ayahuasca type of plants. But there's many other examples too. And the animals we're finding are reaching out to us. So there's a real consciousness change that's going on across this planet. And I think it's very, very exciting. I think we also have to understand that whenever there's a revolution, there's a setback. So the people who have the status quo, the people who think that they're benefiting from the current situation, will try to put on the brakes. That's what we're seeing. It's happening in Spain. It's certainly happening in the United States. It's happening with Brexit. It's happening all over Latin America. It's happening around the world. There's this consciousness rising. And at the same time, there's a real attempt by the people who sit at the top of the economic pyramid to stop that from happening. And that's marvelous, because it's always been the case in revolutions. And what it tells you is that the people at the top are scared. They realize something significant, big, important is happening, and they want to stop it. And we, the revolutionaries, if you want to call us that, can take strength in that. It's kind of like martial arts. I've been a martial artist for most of my life, and we're trained. You don't try to use the person's power. You don't try to overpower the person. You try to use their power, turn it around, use their energy to help you out. And I think that's what we have to do with this shadow side, this setback, this pushback that's occurring now. So I take great hope and courage and strength from the setbacks that the seeming setbacks that we're experiencing today. The only way that you can get rid of a shadow is to shine a light on it. You have to know it's there. You have to want to get rid of it and shine a light on it. And that's what we're seeing happening today. And it's happening around the world, that the shadow is emerging. Now, there's always the possibility that the shadow will overwhelm us. But if we can take courage and strength and gain stamina from recognizing that shadow is just part of us, we need to confront it. We need to, what the Amazonian people say, touch the jaguar. That's the title of an upcoming book of mine, which won't be out for another year, probably. I'm still working on it. But many of the indigenous people, the Shwa, the Achwa, many of the people I've worked with for years, including when I was a Peace Corps volunteer back in the 60s, say that you can't run from the thing you fear. Because if you run from it, it'll just chase you. You have to confront it. You have to reach out and touch it. And when you touch it, it gives you strength. It gives you its strength. It's what they call arutam, which is the power of nature, the fifth element. And ayahuasca is part of that process sometimes. It can be part of that process. It doesn't have to be. There's many ways to make this happen. But we touch what we fear. And it's very, very interesting to me how if you were coming from another solar system and you were hovering above the Earth, you obviously have got superior intelligence. You've been able to make this happen. You're hovering up there and you're looking down on this planet. What would you see? Well, you'd see a beautiful planet that's filled with incredible resources. And if you look closely, you'd see a dominant species that seems to have gone crazy, that seems to be hell-bent on destroying itself, killing each other, and destroying the planet. Using up all those amazing resources. What would you do? I don't know, but I think you might very well just decide to watch for a while and think, well, damn, if they can't get it straight, if these people can't get things right, we just might have to take them out. But if you continue to watch, you'll see one place on this planet. There's actually several places, but I'll pick one for now. That's the southeast corner of Ecuador, and it's in part of Peru, a place where these indigenous people have been at war for centuries, probably millennia. The Shwa, the Achwa, the Warani, the Kofanis, the Sapara, the Quichua people constantly fought each other and the other groups. They'd fight people within their own culture, but they'd also fight others because they were hunters and gatherers who felt that to protect their hunting territory, they had to keep their neighbors out. So they were in constant warfare, including when I went there in the 60s. But suddenly, they came to understand that the real enemy, the real danger was oil companies, because they saw the oil companies moving into the north, in Colombia, and the part of Colombia that borders Ecuador, destroying everything. And so these enemies from thousands of years came together and formed federations to defend their entire territory against the oil companies. And then they began to understand that the greater fear, the jaguar they really needed to touch, was us, our dream of the world. That the oil companies would always be there as long as our cultures, the modern world, had this perception, this dream that we need to live on oil, fossil fuels. We need to build bigger cities and more cars. And so they then reached out to me and asked me to help them touch the jaguar, us, and form a partnership with people from my country that could help change the perception around the world. And out of that, in the mid-90s, 1995, 96, came the Pachamama Alliance, which I'm one of the co-founders of with Bill and Lynn Twist. And we're now in over 80, I think, last I counted, I saw it was 87 countries. There's probably a few more now. 16, 18 languages, I can't remember, with these programs that you can go online, pachamama.org, and you can also go to my website, johnperkins.org, and the Awakening the Dreamer program to change the dream of the modern world to one that's what I call, to move from what I call a death economy, what a lot of economists today are calling a death economy, an economy that's consuming itself into extinction, that's depleting the very resources upon which it depends, into a life economy, which will pay people to clean up pollution and regenerate destroyed environments and develop new technologies like solar and recycling and technologies that don't require destroying the planet. And we're doing it. We're already doing it. But you know, a few years from now, the current form of solar energy we have is probably going to look very archaic. I hope so. We keep advancing. And so the life economy is a renewable economic system. And it's actually the kind of economic system that indigenous people have always had, that all of us grew up with, our ancestors grew up with until the last couple of hundred years. And up until that time, it was for most cultures, other than a few of the imperialistic ones, the goal always was to create to leave to your children and grandchildren as good a world as you inherited, or a better one, more resources, not less. And that changed across the planet in the last several hundred years. It's been getting worse and worse and worse. Now we recognize that we need to move back into that life economy system. But if you look at this one place on the planet, and there's several others too, but if you take that one place where these people were brutally killing each other for hundreds, thousands of years, brutally, to defend their territory, and now they've all come together, and they're intermarrying. I know people that were enemies 20 years ago, whose children now have intermarried with each other. Shwa with Achwa, and Achwa and Shwa with Quechua, and people that were terrible enemies. If they can do that, there's no reason why the United States and Russia and China and Spain, Brazil and India, all of us can't all come together and recognize that this jaguar we have to touch is something we're all fearing, and that is destruction of life as we know it on this planet.